The Wahls Protocol recommends that we eat 9 cups of vegetables in a day. It's a big ask, but it also comes with a big promise. It has the potential to reverse your symptoms with multiple sclerosis, the incurable disease that's attacking your brain. So we don't really need to weigh out the pros and cons to know that it makes logical sense to follow this diet. But what about the practical aspect of it? How exactly do you get 9 cups of vegetables in every single day? I'm sharing what I eat in a day as a nutrition coach certified in the Wahls Protocol. So let's take a look. And my friend, if you want to be more consistent with the healthy habits that get results, download a free copy of my wellness tracker at alenebrennan.com/tracker. Now on to today's episode. There are 1 million people diagnosed with multiple sclerosis in the US. So that makes you 1 in a million. And you have a special purpose in this world that no diagnosis can take away from you. So if you are ready to reclaim your body, mind, and life from multiple sclerosis, welcome to my MS podcast. I'm your host, Alene Brennan. Hi, my friends. I am so excited to record this episode today. I want to have some fun with it, and I hope you're ready to come along for the ride. I say I want to have fun with it because I feel like so many people get diagnosed with multiple sclerosis and have this like heaviness after hearing those words, which is completely understandable. MS is scary, it's unpredictable, and there is no cure. So you walk out of that office hearing the words, you have MS, and you are scared out of your mind. You're completely overwhelmed with all the decisions that you have to make, none of which you feel ready or qualified to make. And then there's like this glimmer of hope because you went online, you started searching some things, and you came across the Wahls Protocol. And it felt like the light at the end of a very dark tunnel. Something that was within your control that you could do to help yourself feel better and maybe even potentially stabilize your diagnosis, which clearly feels very good during a time when it feels like you have no control. I don't know about you, but when I was diagnosed with MS, I felt like I instantly had all control stripped away from me. And I was grasping for something, anything that was in my control that could help me to just feel better, physically, mentally, emotionally. I didn't care. Just anything that would help me get out of that space of helplessness. And also, I just wanted some sense of hope. And I'll admit, I'm a bit of a control freak. So yeah, I wanted something that I could control. So what do most of us do? We buy the book, we watch a couple videos online, we search for some new recipes, and maybe you go as far as doing a bit of a grocery haul. I remember the first time I went to the grocery store, I felt like I was on Supermarket Sweep, which was one of my favorite game shows. I've never been much of a TV person, but that was one show that I just loved watching. And do you remember it? The people would run through the grocery store with their carts and they would just toss anything in there. Now, their goal was to get the highest value from their cart. My goal was to stock up on the foods that would stop MS from destroying my life. The first scenario was a game show. The second one was my raw reality. Nonetheless, if you can relate, it feels like you're just dumping things into your cart. You're just walking through the grocery store, primarily in the produce section, and you're just picking up vegetables, maybe that you have never seen before. You're like, I don't know, but if it's in the produce section, it's got to be healthy. Toss it in. I'm sure this one's healthy too. Never seen it before. No clue what to do with it. Toss it in. And then you start unpacking all of these foods at home. And there's kind of this awkward moment, this awkward pause where you realize you have absolutely no idea what to do with the foods that you just spent a fortune on. You just spent a lot of money at the grocery store on these foods that you are desperately hoping will help you to feel better. And now you're standing in your kitchen. You got food everywhere. You're completely exhausted. You have no idea what to do with them. And most likely at that point, you're hungry too. But because you're so fatigued, you don't feel like cooking anything. You don't have the energy to figure anything out. So what do? You grab your favorite bag of chips and you head to the couch. That's my style. You'll figure it out later, right? Once you get some energy and some motivation to actually cook, then you'll do it. Well, we all know how this plays out. Next thing you know, a week has passed and all of those healthy foods have gone bad because each time you tried to figure out what to eat, you just didn't have the energy to figure it out. So now you have to throw away all of the foods that were supposed to help you to feel better. So it's not just like the waste of the food and the money that's getting tossed, but to a certain extent, it feels like hope is getting tossed as well. This is one of the biggest hurdles that I help clients in my nutrition coaching program overcome. I help them to break down the principles of the Wahls Protocol into something that is bite-sized and realistic for them on a day-to-day basis. What does this look like for you and your lifestyle? Breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks, and even some restaurant options. Now, obviously, this is a much broader context in which we're talking. We have a worldwide community on this podcast. So we have people eating from all different cultures, all different cuisines, all different food preferences. And I obviously cannot blindly give personal recommendations without knowing your specific health and individual needs. But I do want to help to close this gap from that moment of being so optimistic about the Wahls Protocol. Then it's kind of like, womp womp. This thing can help me, but I have to eat 9 cups of vegetables and I have no idea how or where to start. I want to help you get from that point to finding just some simple meals and snacks just to get you started. So what I decided to do for this episode in our season of MS Nutrition for National Nutrition Month is to share with you what I eat in a typical day. It is by no means to suggest that what I eat is the best or even the right way to eat. It's simply what works for me. So my hope is that it helps to spark some ideas and inspiration for you so that you can start discovering what works best for you. So there's my disclaimer. This is not a prescriptive diet. This is not saying that what I'm eating is the right way or the best way. It's just what I eat on a typical day-to-day. So first I want to share that when I first started the Wahls Protocol, I did focus more on measuring the cups out. I don't do that anymore. One, because that's just not real life. So in the beginning, I did it just to kind of help me eyeball, so to speak, what 1 cup of carrots looks like, what 1 cup of leafy greens look like. It just kind of gave me a frame of reference. Now that I have that, I don't need to worry about the measurement of them. If you are part of our international community and you don't use cups, that's okay. Don't worry about it. The idea is just that you are getting the majority of the food that is on your plate coming from vegetables. So I think it's helpful to know that from a measurement standpoint. It can be helpful in the beginning, but don't cling to it because that just complicates it and makes it feel so rigid. Just start to get a good understanding of what 1 cup of the majority of the vegetables that you eat on a regular basis looks like, and then you can just eyeball it from there. The other thing that I wanted to share is that, yes, the Wahls Protocol is based on 9 cups of vegetables a day, 3 leafy green, 3 sulfur rich, 3 deeply colored. The ratio is important to know that we need to get equal servings of those 3 categories. So the categories I think are more important for us to focus on than the precise measurements. Now, 9 cups was developed for Dr. Wahls. She is a fairly tall woman and very active. She needed that amount of vegetables in her body on a daily basis so she didn't go hungry every day. So for you, as she says in her book, as she said on podcasts, she says many times before, I've actually done a podcast with her. If you haven't listened to that interview, you should. It's really, really good. I say that not because I got to have a conversation with her, but because I asked some like really practical day-to-day questions. And she's always very transparent and honest about the answers. So if you haven't checked that out, definitely do so. But kind of getting back to the amount of vegetables that you eat in a day. Again, the 9 cups was designed for Dr. Wahls. You may not need 9 cups. So if you are a more petite frame, or you have a more sedentary lifestyle, or you're not used to eating 9 cups of vegetables every day, start where you're at right now, but still try to hit at least one serving in each of those categories: leafy green, deeply colored, and sulfur rich. If you're not familiar with it, the sulfur rich are like the garlic, onion, cabbage, asparagus, arugula, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower, broccoli, kind of like the cruciferous family is kind of what people may know it more as, but also like the garlic and onion and cabbage in there as well. So my point in that, kind of like our initial disclaimer: 1, don't overstress the exact measurements. And number 2, don't overstress like the 9 cups. If you're just getting started with this, just try to get 1 serving of each of those categories in. Or maybe you're just starting like, Alene, I don't have any vegetables in a day, so let me just get 1. Great, start there. Go the path of least resistance. You will hear this on every single episode. Make your first step so simple that you almost can't even think of an excuse not to do it. You want to make that first step as simple as possible so that you take that first step. The harder you make the first step, the less likely you are to do it. And the less likely you are to do it in the moment means the further you keep delaying it. And the more you delay it, the less likely you are to ever take action. The name of the game is taking action now. So even if it's super, super, super small action, do that, because that helps to build momentum. And from there, you can build consistency. Okay, I get really excited about this, so let me not detract. So let me not get distracted. Our focus here, what I eat in a typical day. So I had that disclaimer out there in the sense that like I don't hit 9 cups every single day. Quite honestly, I'm not focused on measuring them. My focus is looking at my plate and have I gotten some vegetables on my plate at each meal or snack. Sometimes it's yes, sometimes it's no. I do my best. But breakfast is one that has changed the most since starting the Wahls Protocol. So, I was kind of like your standard American diet. And for breakfast, I might have something like a bagel or waffles or, eggs and toast or yogurt or cereal. There's just so many muffins. Like everything is gluten and dairy based. So when you're looking at the Wahls Protocol and you can't have gluten or dairy, that's 99% of breakfast options here in America. And then you're trying to figure out how you get all these servings of vegetables in. And you're like, well, that means that I basically have to put them into breakfast. I have to eat vegetables for breakfast? Like, I don't know about this. Here's what I do. My breakfasts look very non-traditional. They look a lot more like dinner than they do breakfast. And I've actually really come to like that over the years because I am a big breakfast eater. I wake up with a healthy appetite and I'm pretty active throughout the day. So I want something hearty to start my day. Now, one of kind of like the classic Wahls Protocol or AIP breakfast to do is a breakfast hash. So there doesn't have to be like a specific recipe or, like precise things that you need to do with it. Get some ground meat, some ground beef, turkey, chicken, whatever your ground meat of preference is, and then put in some different vegetables with it. So one of my kind of like go-to would be some ground turkey with some sauteed peppers, onions, mushrooms, and then some cut up sweet potatoes in there. Now, I may put in some spinach in there as well. But what I have found when I meal prep that is that the leafy greens kind of like it creates too much moisture in there. So I feel like it goes bad faster. So I actually don't put leafy greens in the breakfast hash as much. Although what I probably could do is just cook them separately and then add them to the plate each morning. So it's not like mixed in with the hash that's sitting in the refrigerator each day. So breakfast hash is like a super easy way to get some deeply colored and especially those sulfur rich. And if you needed to, again, you could add leafy greens in. If you've followed me on Instagram, you know one of my favorite breakfasts, actually two of my favorite breakfasts that I post about all the time, the chicken pot pie. I love it. It's delicious and it's super easy to make. So I'll do a crock pot chicken overnight on a Saturday night, wake up Sunday morning, and I'll take all of the meat off and then save the broth. And from that, I make the chicken pot pie. So I saute up some onions, some celery, carrots. Sometimes I put some peas in there. Usually that's more just because my daughter likes them, so I would have them in there for her. But carrot, celery, onion, and then I put the chicken, the broth. I'll use some cassava flour to kind of like thicken it up a bit. And then I do a cassava flour crust on top. That to me, I think it's more like a nostalgic thing. Like that's something that I had a lot as a kid. So it just feels hearty. It feels good. So that's often, and it's simple. So that's a pretty common breakfast that I have. The other one that I really like is a shepherd's pie. So again, that's some type of ground meat, often ground turkey. And I can tuck a lot of vegetables in that. I will do mushrooms, onions, carrots, sweet potato. I've done parsnips in there. Did I say mushrooms? Lots of different things. I mean, you can really get creative with what you want to do in there. Again, I think I'll sprinkle in some cassava flour to kind of like thicken it up a little bit. And then I put it in the pan. And then on top, it's mashed cauliflower or mashed parsnips. That's been something else that I really enjoy doing. Or if I'm really lazy and I'm like, I don't have time to do any like mashed stuff, I will overcook a sweet potato in the oven while the rest of the stuff is cooking, and then just peel it and kind of mash it up and put it right on top. Sometimes you just need to get a little down and dirty to get the job done. But with that, you're getting, obviously, each of these, you're getting some good quality protein. But in the shepherd's pie, there's definitely color because you're getting the sweet potato, the carrots, and then the sulfur, you're getting the mushrooms, the onion. There's not leafy green in there. Okay. The other sulfur that you're getting is the cauliflower on top, or a deeply color if I do the sweet potato. So that's just some ways just to get more vegetables in. Of course, you can do a smoothie as well. Like that's everyone's kind of like go-to. I hear more people than not do these like garbage disposal smoothies where they dump everything in there. That looks gross. It tastes gross. Stop doing that. Like, that's not sustainable. I get it if that's like your lifeline in the beginning and you know no different. Then put it in, blend it up, and gulp it down. But like, don't torture yourself with food. Find something that you actually like. So maybe these, spark some ideas. And in terms of like recipes, the chicken pot pie, the shepherd's pie, like, is there something that you have done? Maybe it's a family recipe or just, one that you've always done. The shepherd's pie, like, that's just an easy one to convert over. Whatever you were doing before, you can just do, again, like the mashed cauliflower on top instead of like regular potatoes, and then just bulk it up with more vegetables. Because typically a shepherd's pie is just the ground meat, isn't it? Ground meat, peas, and then the mashed potatoes on top, maybe some carrots in there. But either way, like just tuck more vegetables in. Don't overthink it of trying to have like a precise recipe. You don't need to worry about that. For snacks, I'll typically do something like berries. I will sit and have a snack with my daughter, and we often do just some like berries or fruit during that time. And then because of my daughter, we do have an earlier lunch. So I tend to have salad with some salmon. That's kind of like an easy go-to. I get the individual salmon that's in the freezer section of the grocery store or butcher box. I like theirs best. I'll just heat that up in the air fryer. It takes like 10, 12 minutes. It doesn't take long at all. And then that gives me an opportunity. Obviously with the salad, you're getting the leafy greens, you're getting the color with the carrots and tomatoes and all the different things that you add in there. Or another easy go-to are chicken paninis and quesadillas. They're not the most vegetable loaded lunches, but I really like them. So I have cassava flour cassava flour tortillas. I'll use diet cheese, some chicken. If I have some peppers and onions, I can toss them in there. If I don't, I'll put some guacamole on top, which counts as a color, and maybe some salsa on top of there. So like, is it precise to a T? No, but is it something I really enjoy? And I'm getting something, in there. And then more recently than not, I've been adding in like a side of vegetables that are left over from the night before. And then of course, leftovers are just kind of like an also easy go-to for lunch. For an afternoon snack, because I do have an early lunch, I am pretty hungry around like 3:30, 4 o'clock. And we don't do dinner until 6:30, so it kind of feels like I do need something substantial. So I typically have a smoothie at that time. Truth be told, I have not been very good with putting greens in. And I need to get better at that because it's just so simple. I don't taste spinach in there, but my body feels the difference. I feel better when I have more leafy greens. From an energy perspective, it makes a difference. And it's one of the foods that I hear most often from clients as well. They're like, I notice such a difference when I get more leafy greens in. I just have to be better with it. So where can you tuck them in? Can you tuck them into a smoothie? Can you add them into a soup? Can you have them as a side dish? Obviously the salads are kind of like, the go-to, but there's other ways that you can get them in as well. And then for dinner, that's pretty like classic. I feel like a lot of times dinner is the one that people have the least amount of problems with because it's the traditional dinner. Like you have some type of a protein, whether it's chicken or salmon or turkey or beef or steak or whatever it is, just get some good quality protein. And then I tend to have 2 sides of vegetables then, because that kind of feels like my catch-up if I need it. So that may be mashed cauliflower, which is sulfur rich, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, mushrooms, all of which are sulfur rich. We also do a lot of asparagus because that's quick and easy to prepare. So dinner tends to be like an easy catch-up time, or I might do something like stuffed peppers. And instead of the rice inside, I can do the rice cauliflower. So I'm getting a deeply color with the stuffed pepper. I'm getting good quality protein in there with the ground turkey. And then I'm getting sulfur with the cauliflower rice. You can tuck some different foods in and still feel like you're eating relatively normally. And then in the evening, I'll be honest, I'm not a big snacker in the evening. I used to be, but I'm just not anymore. And I think that's because I have eliminated a lot of the sweets, so I don't crave it as much anymore. And I think also when you are getting more nutrient-dense foods during the day, your body isn't feeling that deficiency at night and trying to catch up for it. So this is my sneak peek behind the curtain of what I typically have in a day. Again, it's not to suggest it's the right way or the best way. It's just what I eat in a day. There's always room for more improvement. There always will be room for more improvement. And one of the things I'm working on now is just trying to mix it up with a variety of some new recipes because I am guilty. I am a creature of habit. I will find one thing and I'll like it, so I'll just make it week after week. And I know that that is not ideal from a gut health perspective. You need to have a variety of foods to have a variety of bacteria in your gut. So that is one of my weak spots I do need to improve upon. But I look at that of like, okay, let's have a little bit more fun in the kitchen. Like, let's not get super obsessed over this or super down on yourself over this. I'm living with a chronic illness and I'm doing my best each and every day. And I want to make this a little lighter and a little easier. So I'm going to pick one recipe and I'm going to get in the kitchen and try it out. And maybe I'll put on a good podcast or some good music. I love listening to worship music when I'm in the kitchen. And it makes that time in the kitchen a little bit more fun. So this is, as I said, my sneak peek, what I eat in the day on the Wahls Protocol. I'm curious about you. What are some of your favorite foods or recipes? Hit me up on Instagram or send me an email. I always love hearing from you. What are you doing on a day-to-day basis that helps you stay consistent on the Wahls Protocol? And as always, if you have a topic that you want to hear included on this podcast, send me a note about that too. A lot of the episodes that we do here on this podcast are listener requested. So send me an email, send me a note on Instagram. Let's talk and let's keep this conversation going. Well, my friend, we've reached the end of this episode. Pick one lesson from today's discussion and put it into action now. It's time to reclaim your body, mind, and life from multiple sclerosis. And for more resources, events, and programs, head over to alenebrennan.com. See you on the next episode of my MS podcast.